All right, the nuts and bolts of HIPAA compliance. I know you're really excited to see this, and I know some of this feels really scary and overwhelming. So I hope to break it down into manageable pieces for you, okay? Um, all right, what do you need to know to comply in plain language? So these are the most important things. Develop your privacy policy. Post it at your office and on your website, if you have an office or a website. um, Making sure that you're taking and documenting that you're taking HIPAA training for yourself and any staff or interns. Um, Making sure you look at your physical safeguards if you have a physical office to ensure compliance, including locked doors, locked file cabinets, all of those things. Reviewing your technical safeguards to ensure compliance, making sure any computer you use has a firewall. Any thing that has data, client data on it is password protected, or even better yet, encrypted. Making sure that any place where you use EPHI, which is electronic protected health information, is HIPAA compliant, such as like any online billing or note-taking services. It's pretty standard that they are, but you also need a business associate agreement too to make sure you're proving that. And if you outsource billing or anything where people would have access to client information, you have a business associate agreement with them. So if you have a biller that actually sees client names and dates of service and stuff like that, you need to have a business associate agreement. Making sure you have a PHI release of information, which includes an expiration date and a statement that it can be revoked at any time. Either develop forms or make sure you have access to ways to document any complaints made against you or requests made for protected health information. California CAMPT has a lot of those forms for HIPAA requirements on their website for members. And there's also many places you can buy those forms. And in this course, you'll have some link to some samples also. And then making sure that somewhere you're making notations of any time you release client PHI. I think generally doing it in the client file is probably the easiest, but that you have it there and easily accessible if a client asks for an accounting of that. All right. Posting HIPAA, if you're a covered entity, so if you are required to follow HIPAA rules, you have to have your privacy policy on your website, and there's the federal regs that state that. And then we're going to kind of jump into some of the other security issues around compliance. So email. So what are your best practices? So your best practice is using an encrypted email provider such as Hushmail. You are not at this time required to do so, but you do need to have it in your consent if you're using an unsecured email so that people can um, make an informed decision. If you do use an unencrypted email, be sure to keep your email secure, use a strong password. We'll talk about that in a second. Change it often. And if you use Gmail or any other account that allows for it, use the two-factor authentication, which I'll talk about also in a second. And it's best if you log out of your email account and close the web browser after each use. I know most people don't do that, but I give you the best practices, and we all make the best decisions we can make for our practices. Um, don't ever email your clients on a public computer, unsecured network. If you're using your cell phone, that's going to be a secure network. But if you go into like the Starbucks and you're on their network, you should not be emailing your clients. Always double checking the address field to verify you're sending the email to the correct recipient. I think we've all heard those horror stories of somebody who's um, sent an email to the wrong person, or they meant to do a BCC and they did a CC, and clients all saw others' addresses and stuff. You just need to be super careful. And I would just always advise going slowly when you're doing something like that. I know when I'm apt to make mistakes, it's because I'm trying to do too much too quickly. Consider a confidentiality disclaimer in the content of your emails, and I'll give an example of that. And as I said before, if you're using an unsecured email to communicate with your clients, just spell that out in your informed consent. This is your sample email confidentiality disclaimer. So that's just good to have on all your emails and your faxes and stuff like that. This is a little bit more specific about places that have secure emails. And again, I'll let you just look at the handouts. Purchasing Center Tech has great resources on making these decisions, great articles on all the different kinds of secure emails. So just sort of looking at that. I mean, Hushmail is sort of the classic. That's $10 a month. Some are cheaper. So, again, HIPAA does not require encrypted email, and you just have to inform of risks, okay? Um, and this is just something you might have in your informed consent about, the vulnerabilities of email, cell phone, any of that stuff, that faxes. So just letting the client know that they have the right to not use any of those things with you. I mean, most clients want to use email or texting, but again, it's just about helping the clients make an informed decision. Um, if you're going to have it in your informed consent, you just need to say if it's encrypted or not, and if it's not, there's a risk to confidentiality, letting the clients know if you keep the emails in the record. All right, so quick transition over to overall data security. So what do you need to know? You need to do a security risk analysis, which will be a separate video. Information around health records, credit cards, which is in the financial section, use of devices and disposal, and how other data needs to be secured or disposed of. All right. So two-factor verification I referred to before, and on a lot of accounts, like on my therapy account, notes account, they ask for this. So sometimes when I sign in, they ask for an additional step. I'm able to do it so it doesn't happen more than every 30 days. And for them, I use an app. They send me a code to the app. I type it in. Sometimes companies will do it differently and text you or email you, but it's basically an added step to verify you are you. Okay. So in places that might have client data, you should really consider using the two-factor verification. And I know it's a pain in the tushy, but we want to keep our data as secure as possible. Electronic health records, any company should be stating that they're following the HIPAA rules and using industry standard encryption. That's pretty standard with all the big names. Making sure you have a business associate agreement with any company like that. And again, they have them set up usually pretty easily to get. And if multiple people have access to the record, there needs to be a way for you to track access. And I do believe a lot of the electronic health records have that built in, but that's something to think about if you have a group practice or an admin or somebody else who might be logging in. Your business associate agreements. So there'll be a link in the handouts as far as getting one, and just anytime you're sharing protected health information, you need to sign a business associate agreement. So as far as a person, it would be most likely a billing person, like an accountant, only if they see client names. If they just see a deposit, then that's not protected health information, but a name is clearly protected health information. So one of our biggest risk factors is phones, and surveys say most 80% of us use some sort of personal mobile device, a smartphone, tablet, etc. So, your risks are sending a message to the wrong person, being intercepted on an open cell phone network or Wi-Fi hotspot that's not yours, back to the Starbucks example, or you lose a device that has protected health information on it. And let me tell you, there are a ton of cases where that happens. And if you have not secured your device, you can expect a big fat fine. Securing your devices, these are, again, places where you're looking for that, your email threats, your networking threats, losing the device, any online cloud syncing, if that is thing, and any applications on your phone with access to your personal information. You have some other app on their phone that has access to your contacts, and you have your client information in your contacts, that's making that vulnerable. So how do you secure your mobile devices? Well, the best thing is not to keep any client information on your phone. But I think probably a lot of us do that. I know for me, I do it by initials, which gives at least some protection. Be careful with your devices. Obviously, you don't want to lose it. Make sure your phone locks after 2 minutes, so it locks quickly. Making sure all your devices are encrypted. Apple's pretty good for that. Um, make sure if you're backing up your device to a cloud, it's encrypted there. Using the toughest login you can on iPhones, instead of a 4-digit login, create a 6-digit login. And again, using two-factor verification in the places that you can. Also, making sure you update, a lot of the updates to these phones are security updates, so you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So just making sure you keep up with them. And also, if you have a smartphone and you have something available like Find My iPhone on a different device, just making sure that if your phone is lost, you can erase everything on there so that then you're just losing your phone, you're not losing all the information. Yeah, here is what I said before about losing a physical device. This is a physical therapist, and they had an unencrypted laptop stolen from their office and were fined $1.7 million. And one of the reasons the fine was so large is they knew that that was a vulnerability and they did not fix it. Okay, so yeah, here's another one. Massive fine. Obviously, those are probably for bigger vendors, but just again, the people that do the HIPAA compliance take this lost stuff pretty seriously, because it's really easy to set something up to erase if you lose the information, or to encrypt a laptop, or make it extra secure. So they really take it very seriously if this happens. Another one was an unencrypted flash drive. Again, okay. This is kind of a scary one, because I know this is a fear I always have, is sending a fax to the wrong number. And again, as I said before, just making sure you go really slowly and carefully and double check everything. And this was in regards to a poor person that was HIV positive, and they sent the record to their employer rather than their doctor. In this case, I think that OCR, the Office of Civil Rights that enforces HIPAA, recognized it was an accident and gave a strong warning and mandated regular HIPAA training for all employees. So they do look at whether, you're doing your best and all of that, but obviously nobody wants to do something that could be so harmful to a client. Securing your computers, again, it's best practice, not to keep your PHI data on there. I mean, it's one of the benefits of therapy notes and simple practice is they store it all and it's not on your computer. But if you choose to do it, make sure you have a strong password. Don't leave security settings to the default security. Make them as tight as possible. Make sure you have both a firewall and virus protection on your computer. And have a shredding program on your computer that has documents with PHI, so that when you're done with them, you can electronically shred them. I actually use this Clean My Mac program for my Mac, and it also has a shredding program. So there is an annual fee of, I think, like $35. So again, HIPAA compliance generally is going to cost you some money, unfortunately. And again, if you have a backup drive, make sure that everything there has the same security procedures. And again, if you back up to the cloud, the same thing. What's a strong password? I'm sure you've all seen this, and it's easy for us to get lazy or use the same password again and again, and just don't do it with, I would say, with anything with banking or anything with client stuff, and make your choices on the other stuff. So one password for each account, capitals, lowercase, numbers, special figures, and no use of any word that can be found in a dictionary. That's a strong password. So your phone, again, your regular cell phone is not going to be HIPAA compliant. And again, it's the same thing as before. You can use it if you disclose it to your clients that you are using it. I like having a separate number to allow for separation from work and personal calls. But, everybody makes their own choices. Just again, if you're using your smartphone as your work number and your personal, making sure it's secured. What about texting in private practice? Best thing is, again, encrypted texts if you're going to text with clients. Best way to do that is a secure texting app such as Spruce Care. That one actually requires the client use the same app. I use something called, there's two called, one's called iPlum and one's called phone.com, and I use that and it gives me a HIPAA compliant phone via an app through my smartphone and also secure texting. So again, you're obligated to warn of the risks. It doesn't have to be encrypted. Um, and here's some resources on companies that do provide these services. And again, you're going to have to pay some money, and but just it's money well spent. You don't want to have a HIPAA violation on your record. Disposing of electronics, it's really important to make sure that when you do that, there's no PHI on any devices. And it's important because a lot of us don't really recognize that copiers and printers also often scan things and may have some information stored on them. So, last time I got rid of a printer, I Googled it and figured out how to erase any information that had been stored. Yeah. Older computers. You just sometimes you could actually buy a disk or something that just will erase everything, or get it professionally done. But make sure that everything is just cleared, not just reformatted, because we all know that if it's not done properly, information could be retrieved by people that know what they're doing. Older phones may have a SIM card, and then you would just remove it and destroy it. Or you can have a device electronically shredded. And for smartphones, usually a total reset erases everything on there. Although, if you've backed up to a cloud, that information is still on the cloud. So just making sure you're mindful of that. I talked about electronic shredding. Yeah, all right. And yeah, this is a place where there was a big fine because the healthcare provider returned photocopiers to a leasing agent and hadn't deleted the data. So, and this is another one. This is a psychologist who actually had employees and past due bills to a collection firm, and those bills included PHI, which, like a CPT code, is considered PHI. So, just a reminder that it's many things, and this person lost its license around it. So, just making sure. I mean, there's a reason most of us try to avoid collections. So, just making sure you're just mindful of all of what PHI is, and that you're not releasing it um, without a business associate agreement and everything else in place. All right, you got through the nuts and bolts of this, and thanks for